Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Aater Suleman.
Hey, how's everyone doing today? Well, good morning. First of all, welcome to VixulCon. And we are really glad that you are here. We do not take your time for granted, so we appreciate that you decided to give us a full day of your time. It's our job to make it worth it for you, so you can give us feedback at the end of the day. Every VixulCon, for those of you who have come to VixulCon before, I have started every VixulCon with a slide that says that the best way to have a great conference is to have low expectations. Today, I'm not going to do that because I do think we have a lot of very exciting stuff to share today. So keep your expectations high. We will be talking about some very exciting things, and we want to show you guys what we at Vixul believe is the future of tech services. So just a quick recap on the Vixul story. We started Vixul because when we were building our tech services company, Flux7, a decade ago, there was really no ecosystem to help tech services founders. And when we finished our journey with the exit in 2019, this was one of the top items on the to-do list that we want to change that. And we want to build an ecosystem to help tech services founders. And here we are. Almost 4 years in, we have had 7 cohorts. We have 32 portfolio companies today that have gone through our program. In total, the portfolio has sold about $86 million worth of services in these 4 years. We have had 3 successful exits. And in terms of the input, we have had about 400 alumni events that we have hosted within the Vixul community and over 1,500 advisory calls that have taken place between the Portco founders and the Vixul advisory community. Thank you. And this is all really exciting, but the reality is that the game has in fact changed. We are talking about really Vixul as the next milestone is a Vixul 2.0, which is how are we going to build Vixul as well as our portfolio companies in the era of AI, and that's what we'll go through today. So first, let's talk about what has changed. So there's one change that everyone's been talking about. That's the easy one, which is that the cost of software development has come down. And what that means is that you can just simply say, for services companies, we can reduce the cost. But really, what we are seeing in the field with over a dozen of our companies that are working and using AI, that the benefit is not just in the delivery. The real benefit is changing the customer experience entirely and being able to give our customers or our portfolio companies are able to offer the experience that was just not possible before AI. The change is just not in delivery, just not in fast technology. It is in the way we take the customer from the marketing all the way to the end of their journey. And I will leave it for my portfolio companies to show you how they actually do it. But the other change is really important that we are seeing in the market, which is that the customer expectations are shifting. Customer today is looking at solutions very differently, and I will start with my own example here really quick. I got a very well-written cold email last week, and it was very well researched. It was basically talking about this idea that, hey, every startup accelerator wants to build a community, and if you guys are looking for something similar, we can help you do that. Well targeted. I went ahead and hit reply. We actually got on a call. However, once we got on a call, within a couple of minutes, it became very clear that they are not solving my problem. What they're going to do is they're going to sell me a solution or sell me a tool and then wish me luck that I'll be successful in making the community that I'm looking for. And I think that's the consumer expectation change that is happening. That my first question back to them was, are you going to sell me a tool or are you going to solve my problem? And the answer was a tool. And I was like, this is not going to work. I already have enough on my plate. And if I buy a tool and then I have to hire somebody, to make use of it, it does not do me much good. I'll be willing to open my wallet a lot easier and a lot bigger if you were willing to solve my problem. And that is what we are seeing across the board. The customers are realizing that if it's just a tool, they can build it themselves and build it better and more specialized to their exact use case. They're looking for the problems to be solved. And that wave is just starting. And it's no longer about build versus buy. It's about buy versus vibe it yourself. So all roads are really leading to this idea of companies that at Vixul we have been calling for years solution companies, which are neither services nor products. But now the whole world is paying attention to what we are saying. Just a very interesting data point. Emergence Capital out of the Bay Area published a playbook for how to build AI-first services companies. This took place about 10 days ago. And I guess in our world of technology, I would say it actually went viral. Within 24 hours, there were over 2,400 requests for that playbook. And then the question is, who was asking? And it's not who you think it is. The most frequent folks who actually commented that they would want a private copy were actually brand name venture capitalists. 198 out of those requests actually came from brand name venture capitalists. Another 500 came from those who identify themselves as investors, as angel investors. And the data that the signal is so strong in the market right now that the world is changing around us. More than founders, the old playbook is gone, and people are looking for the new playbook. And that's what we are creating at Vixul. So how do we break this down? There is some new terminology, some new models being talked about. And we like to break this down into a 2x2 grid, just like every consultant does for every problem. So we have discovery on one side and delivery on the other side. And the idea is that you have digital delivery or digital discovery. And you end up with these four things where you have the human delivery and human discovery, which was our previous model up until a few months ago. And then there's the other extreme of fully autonomous AI, where AI does the discovery and the delivery. However, there are many problems that actually do not fit in that bucket. What the customer is looking for is a more concierge experience, a bit more personalization, the ability to talk to a human. The value of the human connection is still very much there. And that creates these two new models, which are, depending on who you talk to, could be called service as a software or AI-first services. And even those two models are starting to merge because nearly everyone is talking about let's do human plus AI in discovery and human plus AI in delivery as well. So what does that actually look like in the real world? And here's some of the data that we have observed undergoing this transformation at Vixul for several companies. So what is the definition of that, let's say, service as a software? So what we are ending up with is finding companies that are services companies. They are delivering bespoke solutions, but their gross margins are rivaling that of SaaS companies. We are hitting gross margins in north of 70% at this point in several of our companies. And AI is not just being used as ChatGPT. AI agents are actually producing real work product that is being given to the customer as the end result. And agents are not just doing delivery, as I shared earlier. They are being used full cycle from top of the funnel all the way to the bottom of the funnel, invoicing and creating case studies as well. And these are solutions that are not just the traditional trade-off between scaling and customization is going out of the door. We are able to create solutions that are personalized and customized. At the same time, they are scalable. We do not require the headcount to increase linearly with revenue anymore. And that is enabling us to provide bespoke outcomes to customers that they're looking for rather than sell them a tool and wish them luck. And that is the change and what we are seeing in the new world order. So taking about 15 years of me dreaming about how one day services could look like, and finally the tools becoming available in the last few months to make it happen, we put together at Vixul a small demo of what we believe the future of a services company could look like, I don't think any of us has the foresight for 5 years, but I can confidently say we have foresight to look at least a few months or a year out. So what I'm about to show you is a teaser of a full demo that I'll be happy to share with anybody of what we believe the experience of a future services company is going to look like. So Axon Lab here, as it said, is a hypothetical company, but this is the type of companies we are looking to build at Vixul, where the customer is buying bespoke solutions, but the experience of the buying itself looks more like a streamlined product buying experience where we can go back and forth between the customer and the company through an AI-enabled interface, simplifying the discovery, as we discussed, as well as the delivery. And if anyone's interested, I will be available after this talk in the demo area, happy to share with you guys some of the other aspects and tools that we believe will be needed by the companies of the future. But let's talk about the playbook. So this is not just changing the user experience. It really is, the trends are really rewriting the playbook entirely. So just to give some few actionable tips for everyone in the audience. So if you're a services company, the most important thing you can do right now is to innovate in your pricing model. The traditional pricing model of billing by the hour is completely dead as we speak. Starting more in terms of output-based pricing is the key. Try to share some risk with the customer and create a win-win situation with your customers. And one of the key things for services companies to watch out for is to have the correct North Star for how are you going to measure your progress towards this vision. Are you going to measure it by number of hours reduced, revenue increased, customer engagement? I think everyone will get their own North Star, but that's key that you actually use a North Star to measure your progress. On the other hand, if you're a SaaS company, I think this is probably one of the most controversial statements I'll make, that your next moat is probably not going to be yet another feature. It is going to be a service here defined as something that will deliver a bespoke outcome for the customer, because that is what will create the new moat. To scale, you'll still have the core product, but the user experience will get more personalized and customized to where the customer wants to meet you. And I think last and most importantly, this is a cultural thing, that we would need companies that understand what does it actually mean to do discovery. And we all believe we do discovery, but I think there are two different ways of looking at it. One is when you are doing discovery to look for the lowest common denominator that you can go home and add as a feature to your SaaS product. You're actually intentionally ignoring the edges of the customer's problem because you want to sit in the middle where you can create a repeatable solution. And that is where the customers are pushing back at this point. So implementing this culture of true discovery in a SaaS company is actually not an easy task based on the data that you can find. But to think more like a consultant where you are genuinely paying attention to what the customer is saying and think about the edges, not just the middle. So